So can everybody see that all right? Is that big enough? You can read it and all that? Great, thank you. So good morning, everybody. My name is Kenny Richards. I'm a KU7M, and I am the chairman for the Western Washington Amateur Relay Association, or your friends to the south. So how do I get started with this? So our group has been looking at and thinking about narrowband stuff for a while. What I want to do is kind of give you a very quick overview. And then if there's more interest, we can set up a longer time to chat about it. I actually did that exact same thing with our friends to the south, the Oregon ORCC group, about a month ago. We had a great, almost 2-hour long discussion, working group, whatever you want to call it, where we just kind of talk through some different things. So let me really quickly kind of give you some what I call the state of the world, state of the WWARA at the moment. So so a couple years we started looking at how we would handle some narrowband analog systems, because we had some people that are starting to put them up. For those that don't know, we created 8 digital 2-meter narrowband pairs 5 or 6 years ago now. Those are actually all full. We also created 10 digital 70-centimeter pairs, specifically narrowband pairs, about 3 years ago, and those are actually all full now. So we started getting more and more interest about this, and I just sat down and started doing some analysis of our coordination history, and there are some interesting facts that kind of came out of that. So I don't know if you guys know this or not, but the FCC mandated that all commercial systems move to narrowband, so being 1.25 kilohertz channels in 2013. So that means we're coming up on our 10-year anniversary of that. And I'm assuming, like us, you guys are using mainly retired commercial gear. So this again is something that's becoming very readily available. You guys mentioned a minute ago that you have primarily digital systems that are being coordinated now. We have the exact same scenario. DMR and D-Star are the two prominent ones, although we do have a little fusion in P25. I'm sure, like you guys, we don't have any 2-meter pairs and haven't had one for quite a long time. In our case, we typically have 2 to 3 different systems that are co-channeled on every pair that are available. So there's none basically there in the most popular band. The other thing that happened is in 2018, we actually hit a point where we were out of 70-centimeter pairs as well, for 40 pairs. And that's fluctuated as systems have gone on and off the air. But basically, the 2 most popular bands are not full, but they're they're not just readily available anymore. The last thing, which is kind of, I've alluded to this already, is that we've actually been seeing an increase in coordinations since 2013. There's just more people coordinating every year. And of those, 77% of them are all digital. And digital by definition means narrowband as well. So what this all means is that I came to the realization, along with some others, is that we are already in the process of transitioning to narrowband. We just didn't really realize it. It's something that's just been underway for a while, and I don't know if anybody's driving the bus. So in order to kind of address that, we had this philosophy at work at Amazon, where if you really needed to find where you want to go before you start trying to figure out how to get there. So what I did, and with some help from people like Steve, is that we stepped back and said, okay, ignoring how we get there, what would the narrowband plan look like for 2 meters and 70 centimeters? And we went through actually a couple of different iterations. 70 centimeters is really easy because it's we're still at 25 kilohertz, so it's just dividing them in half and you're done. Every other one actually stays on the same frequency, so that's pretty cool. But the 2 meter, because we've gone to 20 kilohertz channels, I don't remember, a long time ago, was a little more complicated to get to splice it up in the correct way so that it actually worked. First couple iterations actually were wrong. We did it I did it, then back and well, will this work? And we realized that the step sizes were not something that was supported in a lot of amateur radios. So we went back and did it a couple more times. And what we ended up with is about every two 20 kilohertz channels, you get three 12 and a half. This is roughly what it comes out to be. And part of that research and validation was actually going back and saying, okay, can amateur radios that have been sold work with this? And a couple of things came out of that were interesting to me. You have to go back over 20 years to find a radio that really doesn't support narrowband analog at the very least. The ICOM 706 was the last major one that didn't support it. So one of the things that we've got when I've been talking about this was like, oh, none of my radios support it. And it's like, you don't have a radio that you bought in the last 20 years. I find that hard to believe. And actually, in fact, most people, yes, there are some out there that don't support it, but in majority of them do actually, that people are actively using. What are some other just kind of relevant things is that with the band plan going from where we are today to all narrowband, we get about 30% more 2-meter pairs, which is nice, and you get about 50% more, obviously, 70 centimeters, because you're just kind of dividing it in half. And this number is actually not correct anymore because it's over a year old. I need to go read on it again, but it's not 21%, it's closer to 25% of our 440 systems are actually already narrowband because of the large concentration of digital stuff that is there. So what does that all mean? So this is, oops, I lost my screen. Let me go there. So there's a couple of things that I want to kind of throw out there. So there's a narrowband proposal paper that is published on the WWARA website. The link to it is there, and I'll show these slides. I want everybody to be able to read it. What it does is it kind of talks through some of the history and some of the analysis that we've done, and then talks about how we line things up, how we created the two new band plans. And that's something that I think we're going to actually probably get to a point where we're going to do some sort of voting on it, because I've done this talk almost a dozen times to groups around Western Washington. The largest pushback that we actually have gotten isn't really that this is wrong or that it's not going to happen or anything like that. It's that our users will be confused. And that's not a reason not to move forward. That's just an education thing that we have to start educating people. So hopefully when the whole COVID situation gets a little better, we'll be able to start doing some more hands-on workshops and things like that. We have something called the Communication Academy that was completely virtual this year, but hopefully by next year we'll actually be in the same room and be able to start doing some more focus, not so much on what we're doing, but the education that goes along with it. We actually do have an analog 2-meter narrowband machine that's fairly wide area coverage on East Tiger here in the Seattle area. There's another one that's going online pretty soon that's up towards not Bellingham, somewhere else over on the coast north of Everett. I'm drawing a blank as to what the name of it is. The other thing that I'll just throw out, because it is there in the document, is I do put in the document what I call a thought experiment, which is, okay, we have this plan, we know where we want to end up. What are some ways that we could get there? And I did it in the context of, well, this is what we do in 2 years, this is what we do in 5 years, and this is what we do in 10 years. And those dates are just completely arbitrary. I just pick something so that I could start tying steps to it to start getting to people, more than anything else, to get people to think about it. The interesting thing is I was pretty aggressive, I thought. I didn't think that people would think that would be okay. And honestly, most of them are like, yeah, why are you not going faster? So it's very odd how accepting this is, at least in our space. So because you guys are our friends to the north, something that is really important to me is that I want to make sure that you guys look at this and give us some feedback on it as well, just like we have with the Oregon group. I'd like these to be as aligned as possible. So maybe we won't all transition in the same time period. I doubt that'll be the case, but I'd love it if we could all transition to the same point down the road. that's ultimately what I'd really like to start having that discussion with you guys about, is if this makes sense. And obviously, full feedback. I want to hear about what you think about it. But that's kind of what I want to throw out there, in a nutshell. Did I stop the screen share? Not quite, almost. So, one other thing I wanted to just to show you. So this is the WWARA's new website. We, like you guys, just did a major overhaul on it. There's a page under the documents section called Narrowband Plan. That's where all of the link to the paper is. There's a slide deck that I've been doing, and I've been keeping track of all the groups that I've talked with as well. So people have some idea that it's, this is not something that we've just thrown out there, and are running over people with, but it's something we've been talking about for years at this point. And I'm happy with where we've gone. We've had really good feedback overall, and the Oregon group, it wasn't that there wasn't that they didn't think they would do it. It was just that they thought they'd do it in different stages. They have a very cell-based coordination repeater group. So the Portland group thought, yeah, we should do this soon. But the group like in Eastern Washington is like, well, we don't see any reason to do this anytime soon, so we probably won't. But that's okay. Everybody thought that there was it was going in the right direction. So it sounds like you guys are having the same sort of thoughts that, oh, wow, we are transitioning to narrowband. We just hadn't thought about it. And I am seeing a ton of questions now in the chat after I close the screen out. So, someone posted the link. Thank you. Website certificate might need help. That shouldn't. It's current. Connection is secure. It's all valid. I don't know. Jesse, maybe you can drop me a note there about which one it is that you thought. Anyway, okay. Anyway, so I'll stop trying to read the chat and answer the questions in real time that I can't keep up with, and I'll turn it over to like you guys. If please throw questions at me. What do you think? Are we nuts? Is this something you guys have been thinking about as well? Can we schedule a couple of hours at some time and just chat about it? And I'd love to get your guys' feedback about it, to hear what you think.
Thanks a lot, Kenny. That was great. Yeah, I think it's been on our agenda the last, as long as I've been here. And I know in my club, we took a vote to see what people would say. And I think it was over 90% pro doing the transition. So I don't know. I guess it'd be the coordinators who would kind of, I don't know the process for moving it forward on our side, but I guess we'd have to discuss it. And I'm certainly open to more discussion and more meetings and moving it forward. So
yeah, the great thing about it is you don't have to do it all at once, right? If you guys look at the plan and say, yep, at some point maybe we'll never get there, but at least this lines up and fits in our plan, you can say, yep, that's what the narrowband plan is. And then you just start putting people in it as coordinations happen, right? You don't necessarily have to move anybody, but you can start, setting up people that are going and getting coordinated into the right places, so that, down the road, you'll eventually be, on the new plan. It'll just, you have to figure out what your own timelines are at that point. But like I said, I'd really, really love it if we were all going to the same place. When we get there, it's up to you guys. I just love it if we were all going to the same place.
George, do you have any feedback?
Can I throw something in there real quick, please?
Sure.
So where we're at, and I assume you all are as well, is at 20 kilohertz channel spacing. And some of the people are like, well, why don't we just go down to 15 kilohertz? And you're just trying to pack more and more. That's actually an exercise in futility. You might as well, you're going to have to move people. And the way it breaks down, if you're on a 20 kilohertz channel spacing right now, 20% of the people, all they have to do is narrowband. They're done. 40% of them only have to shift 2.5 kilohertz in narrowband, and they're done. And the other 40% have to move 5%. So they're not big shifts in frequencies, but they align you up on 12.5 kilohertz channels, which also sets you up for going the next step, which is 6.25. It's a very straight thing once you get there, rather than, well, let's just see how much more we can compress it, and you're just not going to win. The 440 band, you're already at 25 kilohertz channel spacing, so that's just a natural start splitting them, and it makes life a lot easier. So that's just food for thought.
George, you were gonna enlighten us about something.
I was. Well, we haven't really talked much about it as a group. In other words, we each have our own ideas. Now we've got to get together and come up with some kind of a direction. Before we even develop a plan, we've got to have a direction in mind. We haven't done that yet. So we're still way at the beginning.
Okay.
And can't really say too much more.
Then I would love to share with you where we think the right direction is, to save you guys the time, and at least you can look at what we've done and see if it makes sense.
Well, we'll take a look at, I've already started, but we'll take a more thorough look at what you've done, and then we'll let you know what we're thinking, and we can go from there.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Can I be pushy and ask for a timeline?
During these days when everything's on Zoom, etc., it's hard to predict. But let us get organized first. Now that we've had the AGM and we may have some new people involved, let's get organized first, and then I'll keep in touch with you.
That would be great. Thank you.
And let you know where we're at.
Does it make sense to set up a committee, George, for this?
I think, as I said, we've got to get organized first. We've got to, first of all, decide who the cast of characters is, and come up with some kind of a preliminary idea of where we're going. Otherwise, the committee's got nothing to work with.
All right. Well, how about I leave it in your hands to get it all started, and I don't I'm happy to help out, or just keep me up to date on what you guys are up to.
I'll keep you in touch with every step, I can assure you. and
right.
Probably ask for your help in many instances.
All right, thanks a lot, George, and thanks, Kenny and Steve. Yeah, I think I appreciate all the work you guys have done on this over the years, and I mean, it sounds like you have a good template there that, and like you've battle tested it a bit, so hopefully that makes it really easy for us, and we can come back to you with something in the near future. But as with all these things, it's volunteer time and all that, so we'll do our best.
I completely understand the volunteer time quota and everything. So thank you, all of you, for listening to me today babble about it. I look forward to having future follow-up discussions.